Well, I'm delighted to be here with Dr. Kate Middleton. Kate is a psychologist. She works for the Mind and Soul Foundation, and she's joined us to help us a little bit think through the mental and emotional impact of this pandemic. Kate, thank you so much for joining us. And I wanted to start by asking you, obviously we're, 9 months, a year into this pandemic. Do you think that the way that we tackle it emotionally and mentally now, a year on, is different from, the first 3 months of it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I actually think it's a really key point in the challenges that a lot of people are having right now. Because when we went into pandemic, like way back in March 2020, we faced it as though it was an acute short-term crisis. And there's lots of things that we instinctively do in those moments that work really well in the short term. Things like suppressing your emotions, just trying to be relentlessly positive, working really hard and creatively and pulling amazing things out of the bag. And it has been just amazing seeing some of the things that people have achieved and just seeing how amazing people have been. But 10, 11 months in, we're really starting to see the limits of that because you get tired. And more than that, you get exhausted. And the constant barrage of what we're dealing with right now is meaning that for some of us in particular, we really do, we're so aware of reaching the limits of what that can do for us. And I think in this season, not only are we still in pandemic, but it's been really tough, let's call it, just when we thought I'd hope maybe it would be over, actually we've been pushed into another lockdown. Those of us with children, we've got them back home homeschooling, we're back off work, many people back on furlough, businesses closed again. It's been really tough, so I think we're having to adjust. And the longer it goes on, the more we're also having to do normal life. Life can't just stop for a year. And so the challenges of doing that alongside managing pandemic, it's hard.
And what are I'm interested because there's some very good tips out there for managing mental. I've used them myself, turn off your screen, go for a walk each day, talk to a friend. Some really helpful practical tips. I suppose what I'm really interested in as well, though, is as a Christian, what are the things about our faith and being a Christian that you would expect to have a real impact in helping us emotionally and mentally at the moment?
Yeah, and I think those tips are so useful in helping us understand what we need to do to get through. Because there's so many things about this moment in time that are unique, but one of them really is that we cannot change the wider context of the challenge in which we find ourselves. We can't just solve global pandemic. So many of the things that normally in a normal crisis or challenging season might feel like perhaps not very positive things to do, killing time, thinking how to get through a day, those sorts of things are actually really appropriate things to do. But we can feel an anxiety with those things because as human beings, we're not able to control and change what's going on. And our instinct is that we wish we could. And that's tough. And I'm talking to a lot of people at the moment about how our challenge psychologically really is about keeping ourselves afloat. And it's like we're not trying to row for shore here. We are literally just learning to tread water until the tide turns. But that's anxiety provoking if you're thinking, well, what if? What if it doesn't turn? What if this virus defeats us and it mutates again, or there's a problem with the vaccine, or whatever it is? And that's where our wider faith perspective comes in, because it's like, where does our hope actually come from? Does it come from human cleverness, which is brilliant, but has its limits? And right now we are so acutely aware that we are at our own limits, but also the wider human limits of our control, of our capacity, of our cleverness. And the question is, when we're at the end of us, is that the end? Or is that a space where actually God can step in, where we can place our hope in something that's bigger, something that's better than ourselves? Psalm 39 verse 7 says, "So Lord, where do I put my hope? My only hope is in you." And I think that's the interesting space as people of faith. So many of the stories that we're hearing, it's like this relentless barrage of negativity and fear. And they talk about doom scrolling, don't they, when you're just going through reading the latest depressing stuff in the media. But actually, there's a bigger story here that's playing out. And that's why, as a psychologist, I can confidently say, learn to tread water, because the tide will turn. There is a bigger God story that's playing out here, and this is not the end of it.
Kate, that's so encouraging and brilliant to frame, those very practical things in that bigger framework of hope. Thank you so much. And I know there's so much more that we could talk about, and we're absolutely delighted that you're going to be with us for these parenting conversations. I know some of your expertise is particularly around young people and helping us who are parents, some of us are parents, helping our young people. And that would be amazing. So thank you for joining us in the parenting conversations. And we're going to put up all the details and look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I was so grateful to you for all your help and tips and encouragement in this time.
No, great to chat.